The lawyer's voice faded to background noise as my daughter-in-law Courtney stood up. Her perfectly manicured finger pointed at me like a weapon. "Get out of our lives and keep that old ranch," she spat, her voice dripping with contempt. My son Brandon sat frozen beside her, eyes on the floor. The ranch, Harold's legacy. Worthless land, everyone said. 40 years of memories dismissed in one breath. I gathered my purse, stood with whatever dignity I had left, and walked out. 3 days later, everything changed. My hands trembled as I fumbled with my car keys in the parking lot. The afternoon sun beat down on the asphalt, making everything shimmer like a mirage. Maybe that's what this whole day was. A bad dream. Any moment now, I'd wake up, and Harold would be beside me, telling me it was all okay. Destiny, wait. I turned to see Mr. Patterson, Harold's lawyer, rushing out of his office building. He was a portly man in his late 50s, red-faced and breathing hard. "Please," he said, catching up to me. "I need to speak with you privately." I leaned against my car, suddenly exhausted. "What else is there to say, Mr. Patterson?" She made herself perfectly clear. He glanced back at the building, then moved closer. "Mrs. Morrison, I tried to speak with Brandon before the reading. He wouldn't meet my eye. That woman has him completely under her thumb." He loosened his tie. "Your husband left you the ranch, 320 acres outside Austin. The house in the suburbs goes to Brandon and Courtney. It's all legal and proper." "Courtney expected everything," I said quietly. "More than that." Patterson opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. She'd been pressuring Harold for months before he passed. Wanted him to sign the ranch over to Brandon. Harold refused every time. He handed me the folder. "Your husband was a smart man, Destiny. He saw right through her." I opened the folder with shaking fingers. Inside was a handwritten letter on Harold's personal stationery. The sight of his familiar scrawl made my throat tight. "He gave this to me 2 weeks before he died," Patterson said softly, "with instructions to give it to you only if there was trouble." I read Harold's words through blurring vision. "Destiny, don't let them bully you. The ranch is worth more than they know. Check the basement. 3rd shelf, red box. I love you. Protect what we built." Worth more than they know? I looked up at Patterson. "The ranch is falling apart. The pastures are overgrown. Nobody's worked that land in 5 years. Patterson shifted his weight. "There's something else you need to know. Courtney's already contacted 3 lawyers about contesting the will. She's claiming Harold wasn't mentally competent when he wrote it." The words hit me like a slap. That's absurd. Harold was sharp as a tack right up until the end. "I know that. You know that. But she's spreading rumors around town that you manipulated him, that you isolated him during his illness." Patterson's voice gentled. "I'm sorry to be so blunt, but you need to know what you're facing." I pressed my palm against the hot metal of my car. Everything felt unreal. This morning I'd buried my husband of 43 years. This afternoon my son sat silent while his wife accused me of being a manipulative monster. "I need to go to the ranch," I said. Harold said to check the basement. "Do you want me to come with you?" "No. Thank you, but I need to do this alone." Patterson nodded. "Call me if you need anything, day or night. Harold was a good friend, and I owe it to him to look after you." I managed to get my car door open and slide into the driver's seat. The leather was scorching. I sat there for a moment, trying to organize my thoughts. Then my phone rang. Brandon's number. My heart leapt. Maybe he was calling to apologize. Maybe he'd finally stood up to that awful woman. "Brandon, honey?" There was a pause, then Courtney's voice, cold and sharp. "Listen to me very carefully, you manipulative old hag. If you don't sign that ranch over to us by the end of this week, you'll never see Brandon or your grandchildren again. Do you understand me?" I couldn't breathe. "Courtney, please, this is between us. Don't bring Emma and Sophie into this." "Those are my daughters," she hissed, "and you haven't seen them in 6 months because you're toxic. Now here's something else you need to know. That ranch has a lien on it." Harold borrowed $50,000 against it 8 months ago and never paid it back. The bank is going to foreclose in 30 days. So you can either sign it over to us now, we'll assume the debt, and you can walk away with something, or you can be stubborn and lose everything anyway. The line went dead. I sat in my car, shaking. $50,000? Harold had never mentioned any loan. We'd always been careful with money, lived within our means. Why would he borrow against the ranch? Unless Courtney was lying. But what if she wasn't? I started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot. The ranch was 90 minutes outside Austin, west toward the hill country. I needed to see what Harold had left for me in that basement. Whatever was in that red box, it had to be important. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me press the button. Mrs. Morrison? A man's voice, professional and impersonal. This is David Chen, from First National Bank. We need to discuss your property at 4487 County Road 12. My stomach dropped. I'm driving right now. I understand, but this is time sensitive. Your late husband took out a loan of $50,000 against the property 8 months ago. The payment is now 60 days overdue. I'm calling to inform you that foreclosure proceedings will begin in 28 days unless the debt is satisfied. I didn't know about any loan, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm very sorry for your loss, ma'am. But business is business. We'll be sending formal notification to the property address. If you'd like to discuss payment arrangements, please call our office. He rattled off a number I didn't catch, then hung up. I drove the rest of the way, in a daze. The Texas landscape rolling past my windows, like scenes from someone else's life. The ranch appeared around a bend in the county road, and my heart clenched. The white fence that Harold had painted every 3 years was peeling and gray. The pastures were overgrown with mesquite and cedar. The little house we'd built together in 1982 looked tired and forgotten, but it was home. Or it had been, once. I pulled into the gravel driveway and sat for a moment, gathering my strength. We'd brought Brandon home from the hospital to this house. He'd taken his first steps on that front porch. Harold and I had sat in those old rocking chairs every evening for decades, watching the sunset paint the sky. Now, I was here alone. I let myself in through the front door. Everything was covered in a thin layer of dust. We hadn't lived here full-time in 5 years, not since Harold's health started failing, and we moved to a smaller place in town. But we'd kept the ranch, visited on weekends, talked about retiring here properly someday. Someday never came. The basement stairs creaked under my feet. The space below was cluttered with 40 years of accumulated life. Old ranch equipment, boxes of Christmas decorations, furniture we'd replaced but couldn't bear to throw away. I found the third shelf easily enough, and there was the red metal box, about the size of a shoebox, sitting right where Harold said it would be. It had a combination lock. I tried our anniversary first. May 17th, 1982. 5/17/82. Nothing. Brandon's birthday. July 9th, 1984. Still nothing. My phone rang again, making me jump. Courtney's lawyer, according to the caller ID. Mrs. Morrison, this is James Whitmore, from Whitmore and Associates. I represent Courtney Morrison. I'm calling to inform you that we'll be filing a formal contest of Harold Morrison's will on the grounds of undue influence and diminished capacity. We have medical documentation that your late husband was suffering from early dementia. That's a lie, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Harold was completely lucid. We have a sworn statement from Dr. Richard Ashford, confirming cognitive decline. His tone was smooth, practiced. Furthermore, my client is prepared to file elder abuse charges if you continue to contest her rightful inheritance. We have witnesses who will testify that you isolated Mr. Morrison, controlled his medication, and coerced him into changing his will. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. This is insane. I took care of Harold. I loved him. That's not what our witnesses will say. Mrs. Morrison, I'd advise you to cooperate. Sign over the property and we'll drop all charges. Refuse, and we'll see you in court. The legal fees alone will bankrupt you." He hung up before I could respond. I stood there, in the dusty basement, feeling the walls close in. Everything was falling apart so fast. The will contest, the foreclosure, false accusations of elder abuse. And I had maybe $12,000 in savings, not enough to fight any of this. Maybe Patterson was right. Maybe I should just walk away. But Harold's letter had said to protect what we built. He wouldn't have written that if there wasn't something worth protecting. I heard a vehicle outside and climbed the stairs. Through the window, I saw Frank Caldwell's battered pickup truck pulling up. Frank was our nearest neighbor, a rancher in his early 70s who'd known Harold for decades. "Destiny," Frank called as I stepped onto the porch. "Saw your car, wanted to check on you, heard about the will reading." "News travels fast," I said. "Small town." He climbed the porch steps, his weathered face concerned. "How you holding up?" "I've had better days." Frank nodded slowly. "Listen, I need to tell you something. That daughter-in-law of yours was here yesterday with Brandon and some slick-looking fellow in a suit. Real estate agent, I think. They were walking the property, taking measurements, taking pictures." "They were what?" "The agent fellow came over to my place after. Asked if I'd be interested in selling when the time came. Said this whole area's about to be developed. Something about the new highway expansion coming through." Frank scratched his jaw. "Destiny, your land borders that highway project. That's prime real estate." My mind raced. Courtney knew something. That's why she was so desperate to get the ranch. "Frank, can you help me with something? There's a combination lock I can't open." We went down to the basement together. I showed him the red box. "Try the date Harold bought this place," Frank suggested. "That'd be meaningful enough to remember." "April 15th, 1981. 4/15/81. The lock clicked open. Inside the box was a stack of papers that made no sense at first. Geological survey maps with red marks all over them. Legal documents with headers like Mineral Rights Agreement. Letters from companies I'd never heard of. Texas Energy Partners, Lone Star Development, Austin Petroleum Exploration. And a flash drive labeled Evidence in Harold's handwriting. Underneath everything was a note. "Destiny," I read aloud, my voice shaking. "They've been lying. The ranch sits on natural gas reserves. Surveys confirmed it. 3 companies want drilling rights, worth millions. I took the loan to pay for independent verification. Reports are on the flash drive. Brandon doesn't know. Courtney found out somehow. She's been forging documents. Check the dates. Trust Patterson. Don't let her win. H." Frank whistled low. "Natural gas? Destiny, if this is true, you're not just fighting over some old ranch." "She knew," I whispered. "Courtney knew all along." My phone rang. Another unknown number. "Mrs. Morrison? This is Gerald Hughes from Texas Energy Partners. We've been trying to reach you. We had an agreement with your late husband regarding drilling rights on your property. We're prepared to offer $750,000 for a 10-year lease, with an 18% royalty on all extraction. But we need to finalize by end of this week, or we're moving to another property. Is this a good time to discuss terms?" I looked at Frank, at the papers spread across Harold's old workbench, at the life Harold and I had built being torn apart by greed. "Yes," I said. "This is a very good time." 3 days passed in a blur of phone calls, research, and growing dread. I spent those days at the ranch, going through every document on Harold's flash drive. The geological reports were technical, full of terms I didn't understand, but the conclusions were clear. Our 320 acres sat on top of substantial natural gas deposits. Harold had paid for independent verification after the first company approached him. The reports confirmed it. We were sitting on potential millions. But what made my blood run cold were the email chains. Harold had been negotiating with 3 different energy companies. The best offer came from Texas Energy Partners, $750,000 upfront, plus 18% royalties on all extraction. Harold had been ready to sign when he got too sick to handle business. And there, in the email records, I found something that made my hands shake. Courtney had accessed Harold's email account. The timestamps showed she'd been reading his correspondence for months before he died. She knew about the gas reserves. She knew about the offers. And she'd tried to forge documents redirecting the payments to an account in Brandon's name, but one she controlled. Harold had discovered the forgeries 2 weeks before he died. That's when he changed his will, leaving everything to me instead of Brandon. He'd been protecting his son from his own wife. Mr. Patterson spent hours with me, verifying every document. "This is solid, Destiny," he said on the evening of the third day. "The mineral rights agreements are legitimate. You could secure your future with this. Then let's accept the offer from Texas Energy Partners." Patterson's face fell. "There's a problem. Courtney filed an injunction this morning. She's blocking any transactions on the property until the will contest is resolved. Everything's frozen." I stared at him. "She can do that?" The judge granted a temporary order. "Courtney's lawyers argued that you might try to liquidate assets before the will is settled. It's only for 30 days, but in 30 days, the bank forecloses." Exactly. That morning, the calls started. My phone rang at 6:30 a.m., Texas Energy Partners, asking about the deadline. Then another energy company with a competing offer. Then the bank, cold and impersonal, reminding me payment was overdue. Then Courtney's lawyer, increasingly aggressive, demanding I sign over the property. Real estate agents who'd somehow heard about the gas rights. Reporters wanting a story about the local widow and hidden energy wealth. Extended family members I hadn't heard from in years, suddenly concerned about my well-being, scammers smelling opportunity. By 2 in the afternoon, I'd received 54 calls. 54. I stopped answering, turned off the ringer, sat on Harold's porch, and tried to breathe. That's when Brandon called. I almost didn't pick up. But it was my son's number, not Courtney's. Maybe, just maybe, he was finally reaching out on his own. "Mom?" His voice was different. Raw, broken. "Mom, I'm so sorry." Tears sprang to my eyes. "Brandon, I didn't know about the gas rights. I swear I didn't know. But Courtney did. She's been planning this for over a year." He was crying. I could hear it in his voice. "Mom, I found text messages. She's been having an affair with a real estate developer named Craig Hutchinson. They were going to get the ranch, sell it immediately to his company for $2 million, and split the profits." "Oh, Brandon." I confronted her about it. I told her I was done, that I wanted a divorce, that I was going to call you and apologize. His voice broke. She grabbed my phone. We fought over it. I heard Courtney's voice in the background, sharp and angry. Then sounds of struggle. "Brandon, give me that phone right now." "Mom, I love you. I'm sorry for everything. I should have listened to Dad. He tried to warn me about her, but I wouldn't hear it. I was so stupid. The line went silent for a moment. Then Courtney's voice, ice cold and triumphant. "Listen to me, you stupid old woman. You think you can keep what's mine? I'll bury you. I'll drag your name through every court in Texas. I'll make sure everyone knows what a manipulative, greedy witch you are. And when I'm done, you won't have anything left." The call disconnected. I sat there, phone in hand, shaking with rage and fear and heartbreak. That's when I decided. No more running, no more being afraid. Harold had left me the tools to fight back. It was time to use them. I called Patterson. "I'm accepting the Texas Energy offer. I don't care about Courtney's injunction. Find a way." "Destiny, I can't process a transaction that's been legally blocked." Then we challenge the injunction. We bring all of Harold's evidence to the judge. We show them the fraud, the forgeries, everything. That will take time and money you don't have. I'll find a way. I'm not letting that woman destroy everything Harold worked for. Patterson was quiet for a moment. "All right. I'll file an emergency motion first thing Monday morning. But Destiny, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly." He had no idea how right he was. The next morning, 2 police officers showed up at the ranch. Detective Bernard Collins introduced himself, his expression sympathetic but firm. "Mrs. Morrison, we've received a complaint. Courtney Morrison has filed charges of elder abuse and financial exploitation against you. We need you to come to the station for questioning." My world tilted. Elder abuse? I took care of Harold. I would never. "Ma'am, these are serious allegations. She's provided a statement from a handwriting expert claiming the signature on your husband's will doesn't match his known signature. She's alleging you forged the document." "That's insane. Mr. Patterson witnessed the will. Harold was completely competent. We need to investigate." "I'm sorry, but you'll need to come with us." They didn't arrest me, but it felt like it. At the station, I sat in a cold interrogation room and answered questions for 2 hours. Where was I when Harold changed his will? Who had access to his documents? Had I isolated him from family? Controlled his medication? Every question felt like an accusation. Detective Collins seemed decent enough. He listened carefully, took notes, didn't treat me like a criminal. But the investigation would take weeks, he said. And until it was resolved, I couldn't complete any major financial transactions. Everything was falling apart. I called Brandon's number when they finally let me go. He didn't answer. I tried again. Nothing. Then my phone rang. Brandon's number. "Brandon, thank God. Mom." His voice was strained, odd. "Mom, I'm at the hospital." "What? What happened?" "After I called you yesterday, Courtney and I had a huge fight. It got physical. She pushed me down the stairs." He paused. "I have a broken arm and a concussion. But Mom, that's not the worst part." "What could be worse than that?" "She took the girls, Emma and Sophie. She left a note saying if you don't sign over the ranch by Friday, I'll never see them again." "Mom, she kidnapped my daughters." The room started spinning. I grabbed the edge of a desk to steady myself. "The police?" I managed to say. "They're involved. There's an Amber Alert. But Courtney's smart. She planned this." Brandon's voice cracked. "Mom, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. I brought that monster into our family." "We'll find them," I said. But I didn't know if I believed it. "We'll get the girls back." After hanging up, I told Detective Collins what had happened. Within minutes, the station erupted into controlled chaos. Amber Alert protocols, calls to other jurisdictions, attempts to track Courtney's phone and credit cards. The stress hit me like a physical blow. My chest tightened. My left arm went numb. The room darkened at the edges. "Ma'am? Mrs. Morrison? Someone get a medic." The last thing I remember was Detective Collins's face hovering above me, his voice distant and concerned. Then nothing. I woke up in a hospital bed. For a confused moment, I thought maybe the whole nightmare had been just that, a dream. Harold would walk through the door any second, smiling that gentle smile of his, telling me I'd had too much sun working in the garden. But the IV in my arm and the steady beep of monitors told me otherwise. "You're awake." A nurse appeared, checking my vitals. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been hit by a truck." She smiled slightly. "You had a stress-induced cardiac episode. Not a full heart attack, but your body was telling you to slow down. The doctor wants to keep you overnight for observation." "I can't stay. I need to. You need to rest." Her voice was kind but firm. "Your son is down the hall. He's been asking about you. Brandon." I'd almost forgotten he was injured too. "What about the girls? Emma and Sophie?" The nurse's expression shifted. "You'll need to speak with the detective about that." Which meant they hadn't been found. The television mounted on the wall was on, volume low, but I could see the local news ticker scrolling across the bottom. Amber Alert, twin girls missing, mother sought for questioning. This was real. This was happening. Patterson arrived an hour later, with a laptop and a grim expression. "The media's having a field day. Local widow at center of family kidnapping drama. Your name is everywhere." "I don't care about my name. Where are those babies?" "Still searching." He set up his laptop on the rolling table. But there's more bad news. While you were unconscious, Courtney's lawyers moved fast. They've filed new demands. He showed me the email. Courtney wanted complete ownership of the ranch, all mineral rights included, and a public apology from me for abuse. In exchange, she'd return the children and drop the criminal charges. Deadline, 48 hours. She's using those children as hostages, I whispered. I know. And Destiny, I hate to say this, but we need to consider her offer. Those girls' safety. No. I pushed myself up in bed, ignoring the dizziness. If I give in to this, Courtney wins everything. Harold's legacy, Brandon's inheritance, the girl's future. And what's to stop her from making more demands later? She's a kidnapper now, a criminal. You're right, but... No buts. We fight. Patterson looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. All right. Then you should know Brandon wants to talk to you. They wheeled me down to Brandon's room. My son looked terrible. His left arm was in a cast, his face bruised, his eyes hollow with guilt and fear. Mom, his voice cracked. Mom, I'm so sorry. I took his good hand. Stop apologizing and tell me everything. So he did. Brandon told me how Courtney had changed over the past 2 years, how she'd gradually isolated him from friends and family, how she'd put him on anxiety medication he probably didn't need, keeping him in a fog, how he'd felt like he was losing his mind, questioning his own thoughts and memories. Dad tried to warn me, Brandon said. 6 months before he died, he pulled me aside, said Courtney was dangerous, that I needed to protect myself and the girls. I thought he was just being overprotective, but he saw right through her. Why did you marry her, honey? Brandon closed his eyes. I thought I loved her. She was charming at first, attentive, made me feel special. By the time I saw the red flags, we were already married, and she was pregnant. And then, I don't know, Mom, I felt trapped, ashamed. How do you tell your parents you made a terrible mistake? You tell them. That's what family is for. I know that now. He told me more about Courtney's planning. How she'd been researching Harold's property for over a year. Had connections at the county recorder's office who tipped her off about inquiries from energy companies. How she'd seduced Craig Hutchinson, the developer, specifically to use his resources and connections. The doctor who signed that statement about Dad having dementia? Brandon's voice was bitter. That's Courtney's cousin. Not even a neurologist, just a general practitioner she bribed. Every revelation made me angrier and more determined. That evening my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Morrison? A woman's voice. Nervous. Please don't hang up. My name is Amanda Hutchinson. I don't know anyone by that name. No, but you know my husband. Craig Hutchinson. The developer your daughter-in-law has been sleeping with. I sat up straighter. Go on. I hired a private investigator 2 months ago. I knew Craig was having an affair, but I didn't know who until recently. Her voice hardened. I've been following Courtney. Right now, she's at a hotel in Dallas. The girls aren't with her. She dropped them at her mother's house 6 hours ago. They're safe. Relief flooded through me. You're sure? Positive. I have photos. I've been documenting everything. The affair, their business dealings, their plan to defraud you. She paused. Mrs. Morrison, that woman destroyed my marriage. I want her to pay. If you promise me you'll take her down completely, I'll give you everything I have. Photos, recordings, financial records, all of it. Why would you do that for me? Because I'm tired of women like Courtney getting away with it. Because my children deserve better than a father who'd betray his family for money. And because what she's doing to you and your family is evil. Then, yes, I promise. Good, I'll email everything to your lawyer tonight. But Mrs. Morrison, you need to move fast. Courtney knows something's wrong. She's planning to run. I called Detective Collins immediately. Within an hour, police in Dallas confirmed Emma and Sophie were safe with Courtney's mother, who was horrified to learn what her daughter had done. The Amber Alert was canceled. But the relief was short-lived. Patterson called me at 10 p.m. with more bad news. While everyone was focused on the kidnapping, Courtney and Craig had been busy. They'd forged my signature on documents selling the ranch to Craig's shell company for $50,000. $50,000 for property worth millions. And they'd filed those documents with the county recorder that afternoon. If we don't challenge this within 10 days, the sale becomes final, Patterson said. They're trying to steal the ranch legally while everyone's distracted. I felt like I was drowning. Every time we solved one problem, two more appeared. The foreclosure was still pending. The will contest was still active. Criminal charges still hung over my head. And now my property was being stolen through fraud. How do we fight this? I asked. I don't know. The evidence from Harold's flash drive helps, but much of it was obtained through his private investigator without Courtney's knowledge. A good lawyer could get it thrown out as inadmissible. Then we find evidence that is admissible. Where, Destiny? We're running out of time and you're running out of money. I didn't have an answer. That night, back at the ranch, I couldn't sleep. Brandon and the girls were staying with me now. Emma and Sophie were finally in their grandmother's arms, safe and innocent, unaware of the battle raging around them. I went down to the basement, looking through Harold's things one more time. There had to be something I was missing, some piece of evidence that would make everything clear. In an old cardboard box, I found Harold's business files from decades past. Old tax returns, property records, correspondence with various companies. And there, in a manila folder labeled Ranch Purchase 1981, I found the original deed. I studied it carefully in the dim basement light. Something about the legal description caught my eye. The boundaries were clearly marked, but there was additional language about mineral rights. Mineral rights to depth of 8,000 feet on original survey, including adjacent parcel 447B. Adjacent parcelle 447B? I took a photo of the page and emailed it to Patterson with a subject line, "Does this mean what I think it means?" Then I went upstairs and lay down on the couch, exhausted but unable to rest. My phone rang at 6 a.m. Patterson, his voice excited in a way I'd never heard. "Destiny, I've been up all night researching. That original deed has an error, common in 1980s Texas land sales. When Harold bought the ranch, the mineral rights language included not just his 320 acres, but also the adjacent parcel that belonged to the previous neighbor. What does that mean? That parcel is now the site of the Westlake Shopping Center. If your original deed language is valid, and the gas reserves extend under that shopping center, you don't own mineral rights to just your ranch. You own them under a major commercial development." My heart raced. How much would that be worth? We're not talking hundreds of thousands anymore, Destiny. We're talking millions. Maybe 10 million or more. Can we prove it? That's the challenge. The original surveyor is dead. County records contradict each other. We'd need to file suit to correct the deed, and that takes time we don't have. I heard a vehicle outside. Frank Caldwell's truck. "Patterson, let me call you back." Frank was climbing out of his truck, holding a rolled-up document. "Destiny, I heard you were back from the hospital. How are you feeling?" "I've been better. What do you have there?" "My ranch deed. Original from 1981. He unrolled it on the hood of his truck. "After what you said about your deed having strange language about mineral rights, I went and pulled mine from my files. Look at this." I looked. The language was almost identical to mine. Frank's deed claimed mineral rights under Harold's property, just like mine claimed rights under the old neighboring parcel. "What does this mean?" I asked. "It means the county made errors when recording these properties 40 years ago. Multiple overlapping claims. If we're both right about the mineral rights, then the current county records are wrong. The whole property ownership structure in this area is based on faulty documents." Patterson, still on the phone in my pocket, must have heard through the speaker. "Destiny, put me on speakerphone." I did. Patterson's voice was rapid-fire excited. "Frank, this is Bill Patterson. If you both file suit to correct the deeds, claiming the original language is valid, It throws every property transaction in your district into question, including the fraudulent sale to Craig's shell company. How does that help us? I asked. The shell company can't buy land with disputed title. The sale would be automatically voided. Frank whistled. But it would also call into question every property sale around here for 40 years. That's a problem for the county to sort out. Right now, we need to stop that fraudulent sale. Can you file today? I can have the papers ready in 3 hours. Do it. I was about to thank Frank when the sheriff's deputy's car pulled up. Mrs. Morrison, I need to serve you these papers. My hands shook as I took the envelope. Inside was notice from the bank. They'd moved up the foreclosure date. Not 15 days. Not 8 days. 3 days. The same deadline as the fraudulent sale. Everything was crashing down at once. 72 hours. That's all I had left. Patterson filed the deed correction lawsuit at the courthouse that afternoon. It named the county recorder's office, Craig's shell company, the bank, and several other parties. The complaint alleged massive clerical errors in property records going back 4 decades and requested an emergency hearing. By evening, the local news was running the story. Widow's lawsuit could invalidate hundreds of property titles. My phone exploded. Again. Angry property owners demanding to know what I thought I was doing. Real estate lawyers smelling blood in the water. More reporters wanting interviews. I ignored them all. The judge assigned to our case was Sarah Hartley, a woman in her mid-50s with a reputation for being tough but fair. She granted us a hearing for the next day, but her message through her clerk was clear. This better be legitimate, or I'll have Mr. Patterson's license. That night, Detective Collins called with news about Courtney. They'd located her in Belize. She fled the country, Collins said. Used a friend's credit card to buy the ticket. We're working on extradition, but it'll take time. Time we don't have. I know. But here's the thing. She's aware of your lawsuit. Her lawyers in Texas are trying to expedite the fraudulent sale before your hearing. She's desperate. Desperate people are dangerous. Harold used to say that. At 10 p.m., my phone rang. Courtney. I almost didn't answer. But I needed to hear what she had to say. You stupid, stubborn old hag. Her voice was shrill, unhinged. You couldn't just accept it, could you? You had to fight. Well, I'll ruin you. I'll testify you forged everything. I'll say you're senile. I'll destroy Brandon's reputation. Everyone will know what a vindictive, grasping witch you are. Are you done? My voice was calm, cold. And those brats, Emma and Sophie? They'll grow up thinking their grandmother was the villain. I'll make sure of it. I'll poison their minds against you forever. She'd crossed a line. Threatening me was one thing, but threatening those babies? You know what, Courtney? I'm recording this call. Every word, every threat. Detective Collins is going to love hearing about you threatening children. Silence. Then a click. She'd hung up. But I had the recording. I sent it to Collins immediately. The hearing the next day was tense. The courtroom was packed with lawyers representing various property owners, the bank, Craig's shell company, and a dozen other interested parties. Patterson presented our evidence methodically. Original deeds from 1981. Survey maps showing discrepancies. Expert testimony from a current surveyor, explaining how the errors could have occurred. Historical records from the county. The bank's lawyers argued it was too late, that the statute of limitations had passed. Patterson countered that fraud has no statute of limitations, and the errors constituted constructive fraud. Craig's lawyers tried to fast-track their fraudulent sale, claiming they were innocent purchasers who'd acted in good faith. Patterson demolished that argument with evidence of Craig's affair with Courtney and their scheme to defraud me. Judge Hartley listened to everything, her expression unreadable. At the lunch recess, Amanda Hutchinson appeared in the hallway. She handed Patterson a flash drive. "What's this?" he asked. More evidence. Emails between Courtney and Craig discussing how they discovered the deed errors months ago. They planned to exploit them. Let Destiny find out about the gas rights, then swoop in and buy the property cheap before anyone realized the deed problems. They knew the sale would be challenged eventually, but they planned to extract and sell the mineral rights quickly before anyone could stop them. Patterson's eyes widened. This is gold. Can you testify? Absolutely. That man destroyed my family. I want him buried. When court reconvened, Patterson requested permission to submit new evidence. Judge Hartley allowed it, then called Amanda to the stand. Amanda's testimony was devastating. She laid out the entire scheme in calm, factual detail. Emails, text messages, financial records, the affair, the planning, the deliberate exploitation of clerical errors. By the end, even the shell company's lawyers looked uncomfortable. Judge Hartley recessed to review everything. 2 hours later, she returned. I've reviewed all the evidence, she said, her voice stern. What I've seen deeply troubles me. Clear evidence of fraud, manipulation, and exploitation. However, I'm also concerned about the broader implications of invalidating property records across this district. My heart sank. She was going to rule against us. Therefore, I'm issuing a temporary restraining order, blocking all transactions on the disputed properties. This includes the foreclosure. This includes the sale to the shell company. I'm giving the county 30 days to conduct a proper survey and title search. I'm ordering mediation between all parties. And I'm referring the matter of the fraudulent sale to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Relief washed over me. We'd bought time. But Judge Hartley wasn't done. Mrs. Morrison, you've saved your property for now, but you still owe the bank $50,000. If you can't pay within 30 days, foreclosure will proceed regardless of the deed issues. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Court dismissed. Patterson grabbed my arm as we left. We won the battle, but not the war. The energy companies still won't sign deals during the dispute. You still need $50,000. I know. That evening should have been a celebration. We'd stopped the fraudulent sale. The girls were safe. Brandon was recovering. Courtney was facing criminal charges, but I was exhausted. Emotionally, physically, spiritually drained. Brandon made dinner for everyone at the ranch. Emma and Sophie were giggling over something on television. For a moment, it felt almost normal. Then Detective Collins called. Destiny, Belize agreed to extradite Courtney on the kidnapping charges. She's being arrested now. She'll be back in Texas within 48 hours. That's good news. There's more. She posted bail remotely through her lawyers. She'll be out pending trial. What? How? She has resources we didn't know about. Offshore accounts. She's been planning this for a long time. Collins paused. I'm telling you this because I know her type. She'll come back to Texas angry and desperate. Be careful. I thanked him and hung up. Brandon looked at me. She's getting out? Apparently. Mom, she's dangerous. You need protection. I have you. And Frank checks on us. We'll be fine. I wasn't fine. None of us were. The next afternoon, a title company representative came to the ranch. They'd been doing the emergency survey Judge Hartley ordered. Mrs. Morrison, we found something significant. The natural gas reserves are even larger than originally estimated. They extend under the shopping center, under Mr. Caldwell's ranch, and under 2 other parcels. If your original deed and Mr. Caldwell's original deed are both valid, you two jointly own mineral rights to approximately 680 acres. How much is that worth? Conservative estimate? $15 to $20 million. But there's a new problem. 3 other property owners are now filing competing claims. This legal battle could last years. Years. I didn't have years. I barely had weeks. That evening, as the sun set over the ranch, a rental car pulled into my driveway. Courtney got out. She looked terrible. Hair disheveled, clothes wrinkled, eyes wild. She'd posted bail and flown straight here. I stepped onto the porch. Brandon came out behind me. Get off my property, I said. Your property? She laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. That ranch is mine. That money is mine. I worked for this. 4 years of my life married to your pathetic son, pretending to love him. pretending to care about this worthless family. Brandon flinched. I earned that ranch, Courtney continued. I deserve it. You earned nothing, I said quietly. You lied, manipulated, and stole. And now you're going to prison. You think you've won? I've got one more card to play. She pulled out her phone and made a call. Yes, this is Courtney Morrison. I'd like to report a breaking story. Within minutes, a news van pulled up. A reporter and cameraman got out. Courtney turned on the charm, her face transforming. Suddenly, she was the victim. Tearful, vulnerable, sympathetic. My husband's mother has been abusing our family for years, she told the camera. She manipulated my father-in-law on his deathbed, forged documents, turned my husband against me, even kidnapped my children. That's not true, Brandon shouted. The camera swung toward us. Mrs. Morrison, how do you respond to these allegations? The reporter asked. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Then Brandon stepped forward. I'll tell you how we respond. He pulled out his phone. I'm going to play you some recordings. He played the recording from Harold's flash drive. Courtney's voice, clear as day, trying to get Harold to sign power of attorney while he was medicated, discussing her scheme with Craig. Then he played my recording. Courtney threatening the children. The reporter's face changed. The cameraman kept rolling. Courtney realized what was happening. Those are fake! They doctored them. We can verify the metadata, Brandon said calmly. These are real. My father hired a private investigator. He knew what she was. He tried to protect us. Courtney's composure cracked completely. She lunged at Brandon, screaming. Detective Collins, who'd been parked down the road waiting for exactly this, moved in fast. He'd known she'd show up. Courtney Morrison, you're under arrest. Fraud, attempted kidnapping, extortion, and now assault. As they handcuffed her, Courtney screamed threats. About lawyers. About tying everything up in court forever. About making sure I never saw a dime of the gas money. The camera caught it all. Her mask completely off. Her true nature on display. Collins put her in his patrol car. Before driving away, he rolled down his window. This time, no bail. She's too dangerous. The news van left. The ranch fell quiet. Brandon put his arm around my shoulders. It's over, Mom. Not quite, I said. We still need to win. The next 2 days were a whirlwind of legal maneuvering and last-minute crises. We still had the looming problems. The competing mineral rights claims, the 30-day deadline to pay the bank, and the energy companies that refused to commit while everything was in dispute. Patterson worked around the clock. He filed motions, gathered more evidence, prepared for what he called the fight of his career. The title company finished their survey. The results confirmed what we suspected. The original deeds from 1981 had errors that created overlapping mineral rights claims, but the weight of evidence suggested my deed and Frank's were the most legitimate. 3 other property owners withdrew their claims after reviewing the evidence. They didn't have documents as old or as clear as ours. That left just me, Frank, and the county to sort out, but we were running out of time. On the morning of the final day before the bank's deadline, Patterson called an emergency meeting in his office. Frank was there, Amanda Hutchinson, Detective Collins, and a man I didn't recognize. Destiny, this is Marcus Webb from Texas Energy Partners, Patterson said. Webb was in his 50s, gray-haired and professional. Mrs. Morrison, we've been following your situation closely. We believe your claim to the mineral rights is valid. We're prepared to make an offer despite the ongoing dispute. What kind of offer? $1.2 million for a 10-year lease. 18% royalties on all extraction. We'll also pay your legal fees and the bank debt as part of the deal. I could barely breathe. Why would you do that? Because we've done our own survey. Those gas reserves are massive. Even if you and Mr. Caldwell have to split the rights, we'll make money. And honestly, we admire what you've done. Standing up to fraud and corruption, that takes guts. Frank spoke up. What about my claim? We'll offer you the same deal, Mr. Caldwell. You and Mrs. Morrison split the lease payment and royalties 50-50, equal partners. Frank looked at me. What do you think, Destiny? I thought about Harold, about the ranch he'd loved, about Brandon and the girls, about everything we'd fought for. I think we'd be foolish to say no. The contracts were signed that afternoon. $1.2 million, split between Frank and me, $600,000 each. Patterson immediately paid off the bank loan, all legal fees, and secured an agreement with the county to resolve the remaining deed issues through mediation. The foreclosure was canceled. The ranch was saved. That evening we gathered at the ranch. Brandon, the girls, Frank, Patterson, even Amanda Hutchinson. A celebration, but a quiet one. We were all exhausted. Emma climbed into my lap. Grandma Des, why is everyone so happy? Because good things happened, sweetheart. What about the bad lady? The bad lady is gone. She can't hurt us anymore. Sophie, always the more serious twin, asked, Is she coming back? Brandon answered. No, honey, she's not. And even if she tried, we'd be ready. Later, after the girls were asleep and everyone had gone home, I sat on the porch with Brandon. Dad would be proud of you, he said. He'd be proud of you too. You stood up to her in the end. Too late, though. I should have listened to him earlier. We all make mistakes, Brandon. What matters is that you learned from it. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out. What are you going to do with the money? Brandon asked. I don't know yet. Pay bills. Fix up the ranch. Make sure you and the girls are secure. I paused. Maybe help some other people who are going through what we went through. That sounds like something Dad would do. It does, doesn't it? But our peace was short-lived. The next morning, Patterson called with news. Courtney had pled guilty to reduced charges in exchange for testifying against Craig Hutchinson. She'd been sentenced to 8 years in prison, but would be eligible for parole in 4. 8 years? I said. That's all? She cooperated fully, gave up Craig, provided evidence of his involvement in multiple fraud schemes. The prosecutor felt it was a fair deal. I wasn't sure I agreed, but at least it was over. Craig Hutchinson got 12 years. His wife Amanda filed for divorce the day he was sentenced. She called me a week later. Thank you, Destiny, for helping me find the truth, for having the courage to fight. Thank you for helping us. We couldn't have done it without you. What will you do now? Live, I said. Just live. 6 months passed like a dream. The ranch was transformed. Fresh white paint gleamed in the sunlight. New fences marked the property lines. The pastures were cleared and green. Harold would have loved it. Brandon and the girls had moved in with me. The big house in the suburbs, the one Courtney had wanted so badly, had been sold. Brandon said it held too many bad memories. The ranch felt like home. He'd gotten a job as manager at the local feed store. Something he loved, something that got him outside and working with his hands. He was healing, slowly, but surely. Therapy helped. Time helped. Being away from Courtney's toxic influence helped most of all. The girls thrived. At 3 years old, they were too young to remember the trauma. They ran wild on the ranch, collecting bugs and picking wildflowers, getting dirty and happy and wonderfully loud. They called me Grandma Des now. Every morning, they'd climb into my bed at sunrise, chattering about their dreams, asking for pancakes, filling the house with life. I'd set up trust funds for both of them. College was fully funded. They'd never have to worry about money the way so many people do. The mineral rights deal turned out even better than expected. The first royalty check arrived last month, $347,000, and that was just the beginning. The energy company projected steady income for the next 20 years. I gave half to Frank. We'd become close friends over these months. He came by for coffee every morning, helped with ranch work, made me laugh. There might be something more there someday. I wasn't ready yet. But the possibility warmed me. I donated $50,000 to the local women's shelter in Harold's name. Another $50,000 to establish a scholarship at the community college for non-traditional students. People coming back to education later in life, like I might have, if circumstances had been different. When I heard about 3 other elderly neighbors facing similar property disputes and legal challenges, I quietly paid their legal fees. Patterson handled it anonymously, but word got around anyway. People started calling me for advice. I became something I never expected, an advocate for elder rights. I spoke at community meetings about financial abuse, about standing up to manipulation, about knowing your worth. The local paper wanted to do a big feature. I declined. This wasn't about attention or glory, it was about helping people. The community that had turned against me during the darkest days slowly came around. Apologies trickled in. Invitations to church events, book clubs, coffee dates. I accepted some, declined others. I'd learned to be more selective about who I let into my life. The ranch itself became something special. Brandon built a chicken coop, and the girls loved collecting eggs each morning. We got a puppy, a golden retriever mix, the girls named Sunshine. Frank helped us fix up the old barn. We were talking about getting some horses next spring. This morning, like every morning, I sat on the porch with my coffee and watched the sunrise paint the sky pink and gold. The same sunrise Harold and I had watched together for 43 years. I heard the screen door creak. Brandon came out with his own coffee and sat beside me. "Can't sleep?" I asked. "Didn't want to? It's too beautiful out here." He was quiet for a moment. "Mom, I've been thinking about what Courtney said that day, about how she earned the ranch, how she deserved it because she'd worked for it. What about it? I think I understand now what Dad was trying to teach me. You don't earn love by manipulation. You don't deserve respect through lies. Real family, real relationships, they're built on trust and honesty. Work, yes, but honest work, not schemes. Your father was a wise man. So are you. The way you fought for us, for this place. You could have given up so many times." "I thought about it," I admitted. "There were moments I wanted to just walk away. Sign the papers. Let her have it all." "What stopped you?" "Harold's letter. The one he left in that red box. He said to protect what we built." I realized he didn't just mean the land. He meant our family, our integrity, the truth itself. Some things are worth fighting for, even when you're tired and scared and everyone thinks you should quit. The girls came running out, Sunshine bounding after them. "Grandma Des, Uncle Frank is here with donuts." I laughed. Uncle Frank. The girls had adopted him as family, and he'd embraced the role with enthusiasm. We all went inside for breakfast. The kitchen filled with noise and laughter and the smell of fresh coffee. Brandon flipped pancakes. Frank told terrible jokes that made the girls giggle. Sunshine begged for scraps. This was what we'd fought for. Not the money, though that certainly helped. Not the land, though I loved every acre. This, family, love. Morning light streaming through windows. Children's laughter. Second chances. Later, after Frank left and the girls were playing outside, I found myself back in the basement. I'd converted part of it into an office, a place to handle the ranch business and my advocacy work. On the wall, I'd framed Harold's letter, the one that had started everything. "Destiny, don't let them bully you. The ranch is worth more than they know. Check the basement. Third shelf, red box. I love you. Protect what we built." I touched the glass over his handwriting. "We did it, Harold. We protected what we built. I hope you're proud." I'd learned so much in these 6 months. About betrayal and resilience. About the depths of human greed and the heights of human kindness. About my own strength, which I'd doubted for so long. Courtney had called me an old woman like it was an insult, as if age made me weak, irrelevant, easy to dismiss. But I'd learned something powerful. Age isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's experience. It's the knowledge that storms pass, and dawn always comes. I'd survived 67 years of life, including the past 6 months of hell. That wasn't weakness. That was endurance. The money was nice, yes. Security was nice. But what I treasured most was this. I could look at myself in the mirror and know I'd done the right thing. I'd stood up to corruption. I'd protected my family. I'd honored Harold's memory. And maybe, just maybe, I'd inspired a few other people to stand up for themselves too. My phone rang. I almost ignored it, still wary after those 54 calls that terrible day. But I recognized the number. Patterson. Destiny. Wanted to give you an update. Courtney's appeal was denied. She'll serve her full sentence. Good. There's more. Craig Hutchinson's company has collapsed. Turns out the fraud went deeper than anyone knew. Multiple investors were scammed. The FBI is involved now. Craig's looking at additional federal charges. Does Amanda know? She's the one who tipped off the FBI. She found more evidence in their home records. I smiled. Amanda had found her own strength through all this. Tell her I said thank you. Again. I will. How are you doing, Destiny? I'm good, Bill. Really good. You've come a long way from that scared woman in my parking lot 6 months ago. I wasn't scared. I was grieving. There's a difference. There is indeed. Harold would be very proud. After we hung up, I sat for a moment in the quiet. Then I pulled out my laptop and opened a blank document. I'd been thinking about writing down what happened. Not for publication, just for Emma and Sophie. Someday, when they were older, they'd want to know the full story. They'd want to know about their grandfather Harold, who loved them even though he never got to meet them, who protected them even after he was gone. They'd want to know about their father Brandon, who made mistakes but found the courage to make things right. And maybe they'd want to know about their grandmother Destiny, who refused to be bullied, who fought for what was right, who learned that you're never too old to be brave. I started typing. The lawyer's voice faded to background noise as my daughter-in-law Courtney stood up, her perfectly manicured finger pointed at me like a weapon. Brandon appeared in the doorway. Mom, the girls want to know if they can help paint the old barn tomorrow. Of course they can. And Frank wants to know if we need anything from the feed store. Tell him we're fine. But invite him for dinner tonight. Will do. Brandon hesitated. Mom, thank you for everything, for not giving up on us. Brandon, honey, I'm your mother. I would never give up on you. That's what real love does. It endures. After he left, I closed the laptop and went upstairs. From the porch, I could see the girls playing in the yard, Brandon throwing a ball for sunshine, the newly painted barn gleaming white in the afternoon Sunday. The ranch Harold and I had built together, now filled with new life and new hope. I'd thought my story was ending when Harold died, that my best years were behind me, that there was nothing left but decline and loneliness. But I'd been wrong. Sometimes, the hardest battles come when you least expect them. Sometimes, the fight for what's right takes everything you have. And sometimes, just sometimes, standing up for yourself and the people you love leads to something beautiful. The ranch was saved. The family was healing. Justice had been served. But more than that, I discovered something I'd forgotten over the years. My own strength, my own voice, my own worth. Courtney had tried to take everything. Instead, she'd given me a gift, though she'd never understand it. She'd forced me to remember who I was. Not just Harold's wife or Brandon's mother or the girl's grandmother. Destiny. A woman in her own right, capable, strong, unbreakable when it mattered most. The sunset that evening was spectacular. Gold and pink and purple spreading across the Texas sky like a promise. I sat on the porch with my family, watching the day end, and knowing that tomorrow would bring another sunrise, another chance, another blessing. Harold's voice echoed in my memory. Protect what we built. I had, and I would keep protecting it for as long as I had breath in my body. Because that's what love does. It fights, it endures, it protects. And in the end, truth always finds its way to the light. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever faced a situation where someone tried to take what was rightfully yours? Where you had to choose between giving up or standing your ground? How did you find the courage to keep fighting when everything seemed hopeless? Share your stories in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone else who's going through a difficult battle right now. If this story touched your heart or gave you hope, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges. And share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, no matter your age or circumstances. Remember, you're stronger than you think. Age brings wisdom. Experience brings resilience. And sometimes, the battles we face reveal strengths we never knew we had. Thank you for listening to my story. May you find the courage to fight your own battles, the wisdom to know what's worth protecting, and the peace that comes from living with integrity. God bless you all, and until next time, remember, dawn always comes after the darkest night.